this video, I'll discuss how to communicate project problems. In the upcoming activity, you'll learn how to synthesize a project problem into a one-sentence summary for a senior stakeholder. Combining information from multiple sources, like conversations, emails, and documents, is a skill that project managers use frequently. It's helpful to reference when leading conversations in meetings, writing documentation, and emailing team members regarding the project. Strong communication involves combining information, and potential employers may want you to prove you're capable of doing so effectively. The problem summary you'll write in the upcoming activity will be included in the practice email you'll create later on. Okay, let's discuss project problems. Every project has its problems, and communicating those problems is a part of your job as a project manager. Usually, project problems are small enough to address within the immediate project team. But occasionally, you'll need to escalate problems and proposed solutions to a senior stakeholder for their input and guidance on next steps. Stakeholders shouldn't have to read different project documents or consult multiple email threads in order to understand the project problem. Instead, it's your responsibility as a project manager to synthesize relevant information from multiple sources into a coherent summary that clearly communicates the issue. To write an effective one-sentence overview of a problem, you'll need to synthesize information from various sources, like emails, presentations, meeting notes, and more. Synthesizing requires gathering information from multiple sources and using those points to help form your own analysis. For example, it wouldn't be very helpful to send a stakeholder a link to your project plan because it doesn't give them a thorough understanding of what the problem entails. To determine which information is relevant and belongs in a 1 to 2 sentence overview for your stakeholders, ask yourself, how can I communicate a decision in a way that makes it easy for them to decide? For instance, let's say the project plan has 5 tasks overdue because of supplier delays, and this may ultimately affect the final deliverable of your project. You've been working on creating a few solutions to mitigate this issue. Rather than sending your stakeholders a link to the plan and pointing out all of the overdue tasks, you might summarize the problem by telling them, a number of tasks have run past their due date because of supplier issues, so we recommend hiring a second supplier to hit the deliverable date. Otherwise, we'll need to push the launch date back. This way, you present the problem succinctly to your stakeholders and offer a solution. This allows stakeholders to agree with your solution, disagree with your solution, or provide one of their own. Either way, you've communicated the problem and proposed a solution, which is your role as the project manager. Let's review. Communicating project problems is a part of your job as a project manager. It's also your responsibility to synthesize relevant information from multiple sources into a coherent summary that clearly communicates the issue. Synthesizing requires gathering information from multiple sources and using those points to help form your own analysis. Objectives and key results are a tool for organization-wide goal setting. OKRs combine a goal and a metric to determine a measurable outcome. Let's break OKRs down. The objectives portion of the OKR defines what needs to be achieved, which is similar to a goal. The key results portion of the OKR defines how an organization, team, or individual will tangibly measure their success in meeting the objective. For example, one of Sauce and Spoon's objectives might be to prioritize customer needs and wants. So the key result that indicates they've reached this objective could be addressing feedback from customer reviews within 24 hours. Earlier in this course, you learned that OKRs can be a helpful reference point when determining if a project goal is relevant to the needs of an organization. If a project and its goals help contribute to the larger OKRs of an organization, that's a good sign that your project is relevant and worth the time and money required to complete it. OKRs can be a kind of shared language for an organization. Here at Google, for example, every project, big or small, aims to contribute in some tangible way to our organization-wide OKRs. Struggling to determine how a project might help us reach our OKRs can be a strong indication that we should reevaluate the project as a whole. OKRs can be really helpful to reference when communicating with stakeholders about project problems. You can make it clear to a stakeholder why a given problem needs to be addressed by identifying the specific ways in which that problem might impact an organization's wider OKRs. You can also point to them to explain to stakeholders why a problem is worth their attention. Stakeholders, especially those who hold senior positions within an organization, often have a lot of work to focus on, even beyond your project. Connecting a solution to a company's OKRs can catch a stakeholder's limited attention. Let's take the sauce and spoon objective of we seek to run an efficient, profitable business model, or we seek to prioritize our customer needs. As you fine-tune the problem summary you began in the previous activity, you can add a sentence to explain how the issue jeopardizes the sauce and spoon mission to run an efficient business model and meet customer needs. Let's review. In this video, you reviewed OKRs, or objectives and key results, defined OKRs as a tool for organization-wide goal setting, and learned how they're helpful when communicating with stakeholders about project problems. As a project manager, identifying and managing issues is part of the job. And if an issue is big enough to escalate to a senior stakeholder, then it's probably an issue you're hoping to resolve as soon as possible. Email can be an effective tool for quickly escalating a problem and asking for a decision from a stakeholder on how to proceed. That's why it's really important to ensure that your email is written in a way that effectively captures a stakeholder's attention and gets you the response you need. There are a few best practices to keep in mind to make sure your email doesn't get ignored. First, think about what's most important to your stakeholder. Often, senior stakeholders will be more interested in a problem's potential impact on an organization than its impact on a single project. This is where connecting project problems to an organization's OKRs comes in handy. Identify how a problem will impact your organization as a whole, and ensure that you clearly communicate that impact within the first 2 sentences of your email. Once you've determined what's most important to your stakeholder, you'll be better prepared to draft an effective email. Remember to write a clear subject line that briefly states what your email is about. It's also helpful to include language in your subject line that indicates what you'd like your stakeholder to do upon reading your email. Do you need them to review a document you've attached to the email? Try adding the words "please review" to your subject line. Is this an urgent email that you need a quick response to? Then you might try adding the word "urgent" to the subject line. Stakeholders, especially those who hold senior positions within an organization, usually receive many emails throughout the day. Including terms like urgent, timely, decision needed, or please review can help draw attention to your message and make clear the action you'd like your stakeholder to take. And remember to also keep the body of the email brief and to the point. When communicating about a project problem to a busy senior stakeholder, your email should briefly outline the problem, explain how it might impact an organization's goals, and clearly state the decision you need from your stakeholder in order to proceed. That's it. Write 1 or 2 sentences that summarize your problem, along with another sentence that identifies how the problem may impact your organization's OKRs. If there are documents or additional information that your stakeholder might need to review to make an informed decision, consider including hyperlinks or attachments with the information in your email. Once you've finished writing your email, be sure to proofread it for misspellings, grammatical errors, and inaccurate hyperlinks. Use spell check and other grammar check functions in your email application or online to help you make sure everything looks good. Let's review. When writing an email to stakeholders, make sure to do the following. Think about what's most important to your stakeholder. Write a clear subject line. Keep the body of the email brief, and proofread for misspellings, grammatical errors, and inaccurate hyperlinks. Someday, when you have to communicate issues to stakeholders in real-life situations, you'll see how managing, tracking, and communicating project problems is a huge part of running the project. In the upcoming activity, you'll apply email writing best practices when you compose an email to a stakeholder of the Sauce and Spoon tablet pilot. By now, you've been with Peta through some of the most essential pieces of managing and delivering a project. You've followed her as she's set goals, navigated through the planning process, managed quality, escalated issues to stakeholders, and more. Great work. We've reached the point in the project where Sauce and Spoon has launched the tablets after passing quality standards, and most of the project manager's work is done. In this video, we'll discuss one of the last elements of project management: closing out the project and showcasing its impact. Before Peta can consider her project completed, she has a few more tasks to take care of. One of those tasks is to create a closeout report. The closeout report is a great opportunity to compile all links and documentation into one place, a practice we like to call good project hygiene. The closeout report is also a time for reflection on your team's performance, and it helps your team ensure every task was completed. A closeout report confirms the project is done, summarizes deliverables, success metrics, feedback, lessons learned, and next steps, and serves as a reference document for the organization. If a follow-up project is required or a similar project is initiated, having these artifacts in one place will help these future projects run smoothly. And should another similar project occur, future project managers will be set up for success if they have meticulous information on past projects. An effective closeout report helps ensure that everyone is satisfied with the work that was done, finalizes the efforts of the team and lets people move on to new projects and tasks, and increases the impact of the team's work through communication with other people who may not have been as involved in the project. In addition to serving as a reference document for the organization, a project closeout report is a document created by project managers for project managers, future project managers, and anyone interested in the project elements and artifacts. Ideally, you want anyone unfamiliar with the project to be able to read it and get a full understanding of what the project was, why it was done, and how well the project went. In fact, the project closeout report you will complete in this course should be able to stand alone for your potential employers. You should be able to give them this document as a sample of your work. They should understand the context of the Sauce and Spoon tablet rollout project and get a demonstration of your ability to synthesize and communicate information clearly. In a project closeout report, you'll start by adding your project summary. In this section, you'll need to include the objectives. Another way to think about this: what was the desired result for this project? Next is methodology or approach. Make sure to denote which methodology or approach your team used. Is your team using waterfall, agile, lean? Maybe a combination of these or something else. One of the most important aspects of the closeout report is the performance baseline. Here, you'll describe the actual results and compare them to the objectives laid out in the planning and execution phases. You'll compare specifications like actual project schedule versus planned project schedule, actual project cost versus planned project cost, and planned scope versus delivered scope. There's even a handy notes column so you can explain any discrepancies or issues that arose. The remaining sections are key accomplishments and outcomes, lessons learned, next steps, and project documentation archive. When filling out these sections, being thorough is key. We've included questions to help guide you and ensure you're being detailed enough, but feel free to take it one step further in your own closeouts by getting even more specific. And when you're filling out these sections, keep in mind that the purpose of the closeout is to compile and archive the most important aspects of the project. Let's review. When writing a project closeout, make sure to include the following: project summary, methodology, performance baseline, outcomes, lessons learned, next steps, and add a project documentation archive. Hopefully, I've explained just how important the closeout report is for a project. If a project is repeated or a similar project is initiated, this important documentation, which includes your learnings and project outcomes, will set future project managers up for success. The purpose of creating an impact report is to show others the value that's been added to your project. Usually, it's in the form of a presentation guided by a deck or slideshow you've created. Unlike a detailed closeout report that's designed for future project managers or other readers interested in the project details, an impact report is typically created for senior stakeholders or project sponsors who weren't involved in the day-to-day details of the project. Reporting your project impact is key for a few reasons. It can help you to analyze results to adapt and improve services, motivate staff and senior stakeholders by celebrating achievements, build trust and credibility with supporters, sponsors, funders, and anyone benefiting from the project, and share lessons with similar organizations. Let's get into the elements that should go into an impact report. One of the most important pieces of an impact report is the executive summary. It's where you can highlight the key points of the project for your stakeholders. An executive summary is a few sentences to a paragraph that describe the project's purpose and outcome. It provides an overview of the main points of a larger report. It's written to share with the stakeholders who might not have time to review the entire report. So think of the executive summary as a highlight reel for your project. The purpose is to give senior stakeholders a concise and strong description of positive outcomes within the project without giving them too much information or being too vague. When creating an executive summary, ask yourself this question. If an executive didn't have time to read all of the project documentation and only had time to read this executive summary, would they be able to understand the project highlights? Your executive summary should aim to answer questions like, how effectively was the project delivered? And what did we learn from it? In addition to asking yourself some foundational questions, it's a good idea to review your SMART goals, your business case, and your project charter to help you write the executive summary. These will help you reflect on and identify the most important aspects of your project, which are likely tied to key accomplishments and positive outcomes. One useful tip you might find helpful when creating an executive summary is to actually draft the rest of the impact report first. This will help you hone in on the most relevant information to include in your summary. In this impact report template, you'll see slides for results, what worked, and next steps. In these slides, you should aim to describe your project in detail using things like graphs and images where applicable to tell the story of the project's success. The more detailed you get in these slides, the easier it'll be to pull out and identify the highlights and add them to your executive summary. After you've drafted those sections of the impact report, you're ready to draft the executive summary. You'll want to include elements of the following information. Project vision. Here, you'll specify what the purpose of the report was. What need is the project fulfilling? Key accomplishments. This is your opportunity to discuss which activities, tasks, and milestones helped you define success. What are the main highlights in the impact report? Did your project increase profitability? What value did the project add? Talk about those here. Lessons learned. This is where you'll talk about potential improvements. How will you change future processes for the better? Okay, let's explore an example of an executive summary. Say you just completed a project to launch a new money-saving app that automatically sends money from its users' checking accounts into designated savings accounts bi-monthly. The amount sent from checking to savings is determined by how much money you have in your checking account at the time of withdrawal, plus a few other variables, like the frequency of deposits. Your beta users loved the app because it helped them build a savings account without even thinking about it. So let's start with our project's vision. It might say something like, our goal was to help users get ahead financially by creating an algorithm-based automatic deposit system that pools money into a savings account. Now, let's talk about what the project accomplished. These are your key accomplishments. So you might say, as we prepared to launch, we helped 1,000 beta users save over $300,000 in just 6 months. This proved the use case and need for our app. And in key accomplishments, you might also want to include financial highlights. So we could say something like, by charging users $3 per month, with 1,000 users in 6 months, we netted $18,000. Finally, it's good to talk about what things could have been done differently. Include lessons learned by saying something like, the main feedback received from our beta testing was that our users wanted more frequent updates about when their money was being transferred. We'll add that in our update. Okay, let's review the main ideas we've covered in this video. Reporting your impact can help you to analyze results to adapt and improve services, motivate staff and senior stakeholders through celebrating achievements, build trust and credibility with supporters, sponsors, funders, and those benefiting from the project, and share lessons with similar organizations. And we also covered executive summaries and how they're essential to highlighting the key elements of your project to stakeholders. Now that you've got a better idea of what an impact report might entail, it's time to write your own executive summary. We've built out an impact report so you can get a sense of what a typical report might look like. All you have to do is fill in the executive summary based on your new insights.
Congratulations on finishing this video in the Google Project Management Certificate. Access the full learning experience, including job search help, and start to earn your official certificate by clicking on the icon. To view the next course in this video, click here and subscribe to our channel to learn more from Google Career Certificates.